Hello there, and welcome to my new podcast, News, Views and Brews, with me, Tonia. Hi there. And what this podcast is about is me picking out one or two couple of stories that have piqued my interest that I just want to talk about whilst enjoying a drink. So at the moment I have got, so cringy saying the name, but I have got Honeyman's English breakfast tea without milk and with a little bit of sugar. So welcome. And really I already have a story that has piqued my interest from thepinknews.com that was published the 13th of August by Amelia Hansford. And this I find very interesting. Basically, there was a British Pakistani trans rights activist who was confronted by Greater Manchester police officers during the towards the end of the Trans Pride Manchester March that happened on the 12th of August, which was Saturday. They held up a sign reading the typical P-word slur for Pakistanis. And so it reads that word, "At Pride, hate police," whilst they were marching in Manchester, to which then officers approached them. Now, the P-word for Pakistani, that is a racist slur. However, I do believe that it is a different situation when you are using it for yourself, the same way that we see the black community, some of the members will use the N-word to say to their friends and vice versa within that community. Really no different to, and as the pinknews.com article mentions, it's no different to us. For example, I'm pansexual. There's no different for the LGBTQ plus community for embracing and reclaiming the term queer. Now, luckily nothing happened with this activist, which I believe is a good thing, considering that when the activist asked if it was illegal, the police stayed quiet. And that the activists said that they would continue to carry their sign. And the crowd around helped chant down the police. Especially as they said "no cops at Pride" was one of the phrases chanted, to which then the police walked away. And again, it really does depend on the context. I remember there's a YouTuber that I really like watching, and he is a black gay man, and he was playing that game that was very trendy for a bit called Among Us. And in the chat, he was just trying to type in something like "I am gay," and which he is. And the Among Us algorithm, or however it is, the moderation word kept removing gay, and it's like, but I am gay. It's not a slur. So it really depends in context. There isn't really a way to go, you're gay and make it a slur, same as we've reclaimed queer. Now, you do have people say, well, how can you reclaim something that was never yours? Well, firstly, the word is used in a very negative, derogatory comment. So why would we use that for ourselves from the get-go, right? And to have that used on you, I think you can reclaim it because it's used against you, regarding you. So yes, you can take that word and use it in a positive way, or a way that removes the hate, so that in the future it's less of an issue. Again, same thing with being queer. That is not a slur. Of course, there is a big difference when it comes to people who are white, like myself. Due to the fact that, not just white people, of course, racism happens in any community, but especially with being white, it would be completely unacceptable for me to say that word to a Pakistani person, the same as it would be for the M word to a black person that I see, or the So there is a difference when historically and to present day a very strong group has been regarded into using that word against a community. And maybe one day it will be fine if that word was not being used in a hateful, demeaning way. But other times, no, it's not really going to... I don't see that ever happening. It's too ingrained into a past that should become the past when it comes to these types of words. And even in present day, if those words weren't being used anymore in a hateful way, again, it's so part of a long time of demeaning others that it really shouldn't be done. And it's interesting again because people find the word cisgender or cis abusive or hateful or a slur, and to be very honest, it is not. I am a cisgender woman, and all cisgender means is the gender that you identify as. For example, I identify as a woman. It just means that at the time of my birth, when the birth certificate was done and the doctor decided what gender I was, that I agree. They put me down as a girl, and I agree. I identify as being a woman. That's literally all it is. It's just an adjective. The same thing as trans is not a slur. And it, again, non-binary, trans, and other types of people who identify differently to what they originally were from birth, that is within the trans umbrella, and that is, it's just describing a difference. Did you agree at birth or did you not? If you did agree, you're cis. If you did not, then you are within that trans umbrella, So it is very interesting how sometimes the word in itself may not actually be, again, context granted, like to say the word gay. Gay is not a slur. Queer is, being reclaimed, so it's not a slur anymore. It's very interesting. But there are certain words that are still used in a hateful way, and so they are still classed as a slur when used against that community. But if that community, again, within themselves want to use it without it holding that negative connotations, then absolutely that should be the case that they can. So I found this a very interesting story, and it kind of puts me in mind. I'm not going to go too much into it because this story was the one that I was focusing on, but it does remind me a lot about the autistic teenager who had about 7 police officers, covering her, and how for the autistic girl to say to a police officer in the home, when the police officer, for a different reason, the 7 of them basically came into the house and then tried to, slap the girl with a public homophobic, hate crime to arrest her with. Well, one, she's in her own home, so that's not a public, that's a private. So you can't slap someone with a public disorder to arrest them, for one thing. And and secondly, to say, oh, you look like my nana who's a lesbian, is not a slur. It's not hateful. And again, you have to take that into consideration, that if you have autism and you're saying things, the other person that this is being said to needs to understand, with mental health and neurodivergency, training and education and empathy, that, okay, in this consideration, I shouldn't be offended by this because it's just an observation. And the other thing with police officers is that it's already been put in place that police officers can't really be deemed as being offended due to the type of job that they have, where they are always around situations where they could be sworn at, or in an area that has a lot of swearing, and situations that they are trying to de-escalate and bring peace and order to, so they technically cannot be offended on the job, technically speaking. So that I found, very strange that, again, this girl in her own home was given that situation. Now, of course, if someone doesn't have autism and they say something like that to you and you don't like it, obviously in your own private home, you can have, you can argue and, say, please don't say that to me. In public, it's still, again, context really matters. But again, if somebody said, I'm a lesbian nana out in public, again, it really wouldn't come under a hate crime at the if you look at what a hate crime and homophobia and racism, if you look at what the contents are for those, it also still wouldn't count, because all it is an observation. And again, context, I keep saying that, but it really does matter. So yeah, nice cup of tea. So again, this is a very interesting thing that keeps happening at these times, is a particular word is being used where in the context at the time it is not being used in the way that police officers are thinking that it is a slur, or that it is homophobic, or it is this or that. And I just want to say, so in a few days now since that autistic teenager got released from jail, should never have happened. And especially for the fact that if I remember correctly from she has also got severe sclerosis. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. So for the fact that she was dragged out of the house onto the floor on her stomach, being handcuffed roughly, surrounded by 7 people whilst she's having an autistic I don't want to say breakdown exactly, but I mean, to be fair, I would have a breakdown if people were around me like that. Just absolutely disgusting behaviour by the police there. But it's just really difficult to think that it was bad enough in the past that neurodivergency, mental health issues, etc., wasn't well known, to when be in 2023 and it still doesn't seem to be in a very good situation where people who are in powers of authority like the police are treating people in that way, and so it's very distressing, very anger inducing. It's heartbreaking to see that happening. And originally the police were following this girl because of her acting drunk on her way home, and then it just escalated as they kind of forced their way into the house to basically arrest her, and then to arrest her or try to arrest her for the so-called homophobic public disorder, and to which again it wasn't, and is again in a private domain. So yeah, I hope you found this interesting, and I just want to say thank you very much for listening.